You might think of Kiribati as a small island nation, but actually, its vast ocean territories are massive, making up an area around half the size of mainland Australia. And if you were watching international headlines, you'd have seen that Kiribati was among the first in a slew of Pacific countries that switched diplomatic ties from Taiwan to China. The move was controversial, but it wasn't the outgoing administration's only contentious policy. The government sacked a number of foreign judges to install political allies.
Few foreign journalists come here.
There's been a crackdown on press freedoms, and most recently, foreign diplomatic visas have been cancelled until 2025. Despite all this, Kiribati's people are more worried about other domestic issues during this election. Fuel and medicine shortages, ballooning inflation, the ever-present impact of climate change, and declining healthcare have been front and centre of the campaign, which culminated with 2 rounds of voting to elect the country's parliament. So far, outgoing President Tanes Mamau has retained his seat alongside opposition leader Tessie Lambourne. She's among a record 5 women elected who will gather alongside re-elected members and 17 brand new representatives to nominate candidates for a final runoff presidential election. And the new government's eventual makeup? Well, that's difficult to predict, with the elected president to select a government based on complex horse trading that's already begun. I-Kiribati investigative journalist Rimon Rimon joins us from Suva, Fiji, where he's on his way home from covering the Pacific Islands Forum. Maori Rimon, how are you?
Well, Maori Alice, I'm doing fine. How are you doing yourself?
I'm doing very well, Rimon. Thanks for joining us. Now, can you first just explain what you see as the key issues on which this election's been fought? I know the outgoing government has some popular social welfare policies around unemployment, but what else is at play?
Yeah, thanks for that question, Alice. You know, the election process, as you understand, is undertaken with 2 cycles. The first cycle is the general elections, which just concluded. And what we're seeing there is that the key issues are mainly about the general welfare and the standard of living for the people in Kiribati. These are really the key issues. So within the past 4 years, how government has delivered public services and how people are, just going about their daily lives have really been key issues. We're seeing that the outgoing ruling party, which is the Kiribati Party, which is, the TKP in short, leading the race in the general election. So despite that, that lead and race, meaning they secured a lot of the majority of the seats in parliament, they also had quite a substantial loss of seats to newcomers. 17 new seats were secured by newcomers. Now, 17 is quite a significant number in a 44-seat parliament in Kiribati. And I think that really tell that perhaps the people need something new, and that's being reflected in those votes. I think how these 17 newcomers align themselves with the traditional political parties within parliament is something to look into, and that's something that we are still observing as they sort themselves out ahead of the presidential elections.
Yes, speaking of that presidential runoff, who is likely to be nominated in your opinion?
Look, so for TKP, the Topan Kiribati Party, the outgoing ruling party, it looks like the incumbent president, Tanis Mamau, will easily get his party's nomination. Now, for opposition, Tessie Lambourne, who is the wife of the one of the judges who got sacked by the current government, the outgoing government rather, her name has been floating around for opposition, to be the best contender. But this is still all unclear at this stage. So I think the challenge now with these candidates is to campaign, because they'll be given a 1-month window of campaigning. And as you understand, Kiribati is scattered, across a vast area of ocean. So campaigning cannot reach all islands. And so they will need to focus on the key electorates, they're kind of like the swing states in the US election. And so these states constitute quite a number of registered voters. These electorates combined constitute, I think, at least approximately 51% of the registered voters. So I think that's where the campaign will be really focused on.
Let's take a look at the previous administration. They've drawn the ire of international human rights groups over its perceived move away from transparency and open justice. Do you think that's something that everyday people are concerned about?
That is certainly true, Alice. More especially true in the capital compared to the outer islands, the more rural areas, and that is because people in the capital or in the capital, the South Tarawa, have more access to information that better inform them. So what we're seeing is that many of the elements of the constitution have been manipulated. Some of the democratic processes have been undermined, and these are things that we observed and I've reported on extensively in the past 4 years. And so we're seeing, corruption finding its way into our governance system. Media freedom is also another issue hindering our democracy from functioning properly. I think it's important to note that since 2021, the incumbent president has been successful in avoiding questions, answering questions from the media, and we continue to ask these questions. We continue to knock on their doors, and we hope that there is a change in this sort of approach in the next 4 years by whoever is in government. But the work of media, especially myself, in just ensuring transparency and holding our leaders accountable is not an easy job, Alice.
Well, we definitely look forward to speaking to you more as this continues to unfold. But for now, Rimon, koraba.
Koraba, and thank you for the opportunity, Alice. Sapo mo.